The sky burned red above the great city of Prime. Fire fell from the clouds like rain. Buildings that had stood for 1,000 years crumbled to dust in moments. The screams of millions filled the air, but soon those screams grew quiet, too quiet. Queen Lyra ran through the burning halls of her palace. Her silver skin was covered in ash and blood. Her 4 arms pushed aside falling debris as she moved. Behind her, she could hear the heavy footsteps of soldiers. But these were not her soldiers. These belonged to General, the traitor who had destroyed everything she loved. "Find the queen," a voice shouted from somewhere behind her. "She must not escape, kill her on sight." Lyra's heart pounded in her chest. She had ruled the empire for 50 cycles. Her people had known peace under her leadership. They had built great ships that sailed between the stars. They had created art and music that other species admired, but none of that mattered now. General had decided that peace made them weak. He wanted war. He wanted conquest. And he needed Lyra dead to achieve his goals. She turned a corner and found herself facing a dead end. The wall in front of her had collapsed, blocking the path to the royal hangar. Lyra pressed her hands against the rubble and pushed, but it would not move. She was strong for her kind, but the pile of stone and metal was too heavy. "There she is." Lyra turned around. 3 soldiers stood at the other end of the hallway. They raised their weapons and aimed at her. Their eyes showed no mercy. They had been her protectors once. Now they served. "Stand down," Lyra said, trying to keep her voice calm. "You do not have to do this. Has poisoned your minds with lies." "Has shown us the truth," one soldier replied. "You kept us weak for too long. Under his command we will rule the galaxy." Lyra closed her eyes. She reached deep inside herself to the place where her ancestors' power still lived. The royal bloodline carried a gift. It was a gift that could only be used once in a lifetime, and using it would leave her weak for many days. But she had no choice. When she opened her eyes, they glowed with bright blue light. Energy exploded from her body in a powerful wave. The 3 soldiers flew backward through the air. The rubble behind her shattered into small pieces. The path was clear. But the effort had cost her greatly. Lyra fell to her knees. Her body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Her vision blurred, she could barely breathe. Still, she forced herself to stand. She forced herself to walk. 1 step, then another, then another. The royal hangar was empty except for 1 small ship. It was old and worn, used only for short trips between planets, but it would have to be enough. Lyra climbed inside and started the engines. The ship shook and groaned, but it lifted off the ground. Through the window, she watched her home burn. Tears rolled down her silver cheeks. Her people were dying. Her world was ending, and she could do nothing to stop it. "I will return," she whispered. "I swear it, I will return and make things right." The ship shot into the sky, leaving the burning planet behind. Lyra set a course for the outer systems, places where its reach had not yet spread. She needed to hide. She needed to heal. She needed to find allies who would help her take back her throne. But was not foolish. He knew that as long as Lyra lived, there was hope for those who opposed him. Within minutes of her escape, he sent his best hunters after her. They were the Shadow Guard, assassins trained from birth to kill. They had never failed a mission. Lyra's ship was faster than she had expected, but the Shadow Guard's vessels were faster still. Warning alarms filled the small cockpit. 3 ships appeared on her scanner, closing in quickly. "No," Lyra said. "Not yet, I cannot die yet." She pushed the engines harder. The ship screamed in protest. Sparks flew from the control panel. Something was wrong with the power systems. The ship was old and had not been properly maintained. It could not handle this kind of stress. A blast from one of the hunter ships hit her left wing. The ship spun wildly. Lyra grabbed the controls and tried to steady it, but another blast hit the back of the ship. Fire filled the engine room. More alarms screamed. On her scanner, she saw a small moon nearby. It was barren and lifeless, covered in gray rocks and dust. But it was her only chance. She turned the dying ship toward it and prayed. The crash was violent. The ship tore through the surface of the moon, leaving a long trail of destruction behind it. Metal bent and broke, glass shattered. Lyra was thrown from her seat and slammed against the wall. Pain shot through her entire body. She felt bones crack. She tasted blood in her mouth. When the ship finally stopped moving, everything was silent. Lyra lay on the floor of the cockpit, unable to move. Her body was broken. The royal power she had used earlier had left her too weak to heal herself. She was dying. Outside, she could hear the hunter ships landing. The Shadow Guard would find her soon. They would finish what they had started. Her story would end here on this forgotten moon, far from home. Lyra closed her eyes and thought of her people. She thought of the children who had waved to her during parades. She thought of the elders who had trusted her to lead them wisely. She had failed them all. "I am sorry," she whispered to no one. "I tried." The sound of footsteps grew closer. Death was coming. Lyra accepted it. There was nothing left to do but wait. But somewhere in the darkness of space, fate had other plans. Somewhere out there, a human ship changed its course. A man named heard a signal that most would have ignored. And in that moment, without knowing it, the future of the galaxy began to change. Lyra did not know any of this. She only knew the cold of the moon beneath her, the pain in her broken body, and the approaching footsteps of her killers. She only knew that she was alone, that her empire had fallen, and that this barren moon would be her grave. Or so she believed. Sat alone in the cockpit of his ship, staring out at the endless black of space. His cup of cold coffee rested on the control panel, forgotten. The stars looked the same as they always did, cold, distant, uncaring, just like the universe itself. He was 34 years old, but he felt much older. His black hair was cut short in the military style he had never been able to abandon. A long scar ran down the left side of his face, a memory from a battle he tried hard to forget. His eyes were dark and tired, the eyes of a man who had seen too much death. 5 years ago had been a commander in the Earth Defense Force. He had led soldiers into battle against alien threats. He had won medals and earned respect. But then came the mission to IV, where everything changed. He closed his eyes and pushed the memory away. He did not want to think about IV. He did not want to remember the screams, the fire, the faces of the soldiers he had failed to save. Those memories visited him enough in his nightmares. He did not need them during his waking hours too. Now he was just a mercenary, a wanderer. He took jobs that paid well and asked few questions. He transported cargo. He protected merchants from pirates. Sometimes he hunted bounties. It was not a good life, but it was the only life he knew how to live anymore. His ship was called the Silent Wind. It was small but fast, built for a crew of 6 but operated by alone. He preferred it that way. Partners asked questions. Partners needed things. Partners died. It was better to be alone. A soft beeping sound pulled from his thoughts. He looked at the scanner and frowned. The ship was detecting a distress signal from a nearby moon. The signal was weak and fatting, almost too quiet to notice. Most ships would have missed it entirely. "Computer, analyze the signal," said. "Signal origin, royal vessel," the computer replied in its flat, mechanical voice. "Ship registry indicates diplomatic class transport. Signal strength declining. Estimated time until complete signal loss, 12 minutes. Leaned forward in his seat. He knew that name. The Empire was one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. They were known for their advanced technology and their peaceful ways. Why would one of their ships be sending a distress signal from this empty corner of space? He thought about ignoring it. They had their own problems and he had his. Getting involved in alien affairs was dangerous and usually unprofitable. He should just keep flying and pretend he never heard anything. But something stopped him. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the soldier's instinct that still lived inside him, even after all these years. Or maybe it was something else entirely, something he could not explain. Computer, scan the area for other ships. 3 vessels detected in orbit around the moon. Configuration matches military class. Hunter ships. Hunter ships. That meant someone was being hunted. Someone important enough to send royal-class assassins after. Rubbed his chin and thought. This was exactly the kind of situation he should avoid. Walking into the middle of an alien civil conflict was a good way to die. And yet his hands were already moving across the control panel, changing course toward the moon. "What am I doing?" he muttered to himself. "This is stupid, this is so stupid." But he did not change course again. Something pulled him forward like an invisible hand guiding his ship. He had learned long ago to trust his instincts, even when they did not make sense, especially when they did not make sense. The moon grew larger in his window. It was a dead world, covered in gray dust and sharp rocks. There was no atmosphere, no water, no life. The perfect place to kill someone without witnesses. Could see the crashed ship now. It had torn a long scar across the surface of the moon, leaving pieces of metal scattered everywhere. Smoke still rose from the wreckage. Whoever was inside that ship, they had not had an easy landing. He could also see the 3 hunter ships. They had landed nearby and their crews were moving toward the crash site. Counted 6 figures in total, all wearing black armor that seemed to absorb the light. They moved with the smooth, careful movements of trained killers. Computer weapons check. All weapon systems online. Plasma cannons charged. Missile launchers loaded. Shield generator at full power. Nodded. He did not have enough firepower to fight 3 military ships directly, but he had something better. He had surprise. The hunters did not know he was here. They were focused on their target. They were not expecting a human to interfere. He flew low, using the moon's rocky terrain to hide his approach. The silent wind was built for stealth. Its engines were quiet and its hull was designed to avoid detection. By the time the hunters realized he was there, it would be too late. When he was close enough, fired. His plasma cannons lit up the darkness, sending bolts of green energy toward the parked hunter ships. The first bolt hit an engine, causing the ship to explode in a ball of fire. The second bolt destroyed a wing, leaving another ship unable to fly. The third ship managed to lift off the ground but was already firing missiles. 2 missiles found their target and the ship broke apart in the sky. 3 ships destroyed in less than 30 seconds. The hunters on the ground were now stranded. Landed the silent wind between the hunters and the crashed royal vessel. He grabbed his pulse rifle and his combat knife, then opened the hatch and stepped out onto the surface of the moon. His suit protected him from the lack of atmosphere, but he could still feel the cold seeping through. The 6 hunters had turned to face him. Even through their helmets he could sense their confusion. They had not expected this. A human interfering in affairs. It made no sense. "Walk away," said through his suit's external speakers. His voice echoed across the silent moon. "Leave this place and I will let you live." One of the hunters laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. "You are one human with a small gun. We are 6 Shadow Guard, the finest warriors of the Empire. You cannot defeat us." Smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "I have heard of the Shadow Guard. You are famous for killing unarmed politicians and sleeping targets. Let us see how you handle a real soldier." The hunters attacked. They were fast and skilled, their bodies enhanced with technology that made them stronger and quicker than normal beings, but had something they did not. He had experience. He had survived battles that would have killed lesser men. He had faced death so many times that he no longer feared it. The first hunter reached him with a blade aimed at his throat, stepped aside and let the blade pass by his face, close enough to feel the wind of its passage. Then he grabbed the hunter's arm and twisted. Bones cracked. The hunter screamed, shot him in the chest, and he fell. 5 remaining. They came at him together now, trying to overwhelm him with numbers, but had trained for this. He moved like water, flowing between their attacks, never staying in one place long enough to be hit. His rifle fired again and again. His knife found gaps in their armor. When the last hunter fell, stood alone among the bodies. His suit was damaged in several places and blood ran from a wound on his arm. But he was alive. They were not. He turned toward the crashed ship. Whatever was inside, he hoped it was worth the trouble. Approached the crashed ship carefully, his rifle raised and ready. He did not know what he would find inside. The distress signal had come from a royal vessel, but that did not mean royalty was aboard. It could be a trap. It could be a decoy. In his experience, things were rarely what they seemed. The ship's hull was torn open in several places. Sparks flew from broken wires. The smell of burning metal filled the air inside. Climbed through a gap in the outer wall and found himself in what remained of the cockpit. That was when he saw her. She lay on the floor, her silver skin covered in dark blue blood. She had 4 arms, which marked her as nobility. Only the royal bloodline carried that trait. Her eyes were closed and her breathing was shallow. She was alive, but barely. Had seen many aliens in his travels, but he had never seen her up close. She was beautiful in a strange, otherworldly way. Her features were delicate, almost like carved crystal. Even broken and bleeding, there was something powerful about her. He knelt beside her and checked her injuries. Several broken bones, deep cuts on her chest and back, internal bleeding most likely. Without medical attention, she would die within hours, maybe less. "Hey," he said softly, touching her shoulder. "Can you hear me?" Her eyes opened slowly. They were deep purple, the color of a sunset on a dying world. For a moment she looked at him without understanding. Then fear filled her face. She tried to move away, but pain stopped her. "Stay still," said. "You are badly hurt. If you move too much, you will make it worse." Who are you?" Her voice was weak, barely a whisper. "You are human." "Yes, my name is. I heard your distress signal." "The hunters, the Shadow Guard, they are dead, all 6 of them." Lyra stared at him. She could not believe what she was hearing. 1 human killed 6 Shadow Guard. Shrugged, they were not as tough as they thought. He looked around the ruined cockpit, searching for medical supplies. He found a small kit under one of the damaged panels. Inside were bandages, pain medicine, and healing gel. Not enough to save her, but enough to keep her alive a little longer. "This is going to hurt," he warned her. Then he began treating her wounds. Lyra cried out in pain as he worked, but she did not ask him to stop. She watched his face as he carefully cleaned each wound and applied the healing gel. His movements were precise and practiced. He had done this before, many times. "Why?" she asked when he finished. "Why what? Why are you helping me? You do not know me. You have no reason to care if I live or die." Was quiet for a long moment. He did not know how to answer that question. Why had he come here? Why had he risked his life for a stranger? It made no sense, even to him. "I do not know," he finally said. "I heard the signal and something told me to come. Maybe I am just foolish." "No," Lyra said softly. "Not foolish, brave. There is a difference." She told him her name and her story. She told him about her empire, about General and his betrayal, about the destruction of her home world. She told him about the coup, the fire, the death of millions. Her voice broke several times as she spoke, but she forced herself to continue. Listened without interrupting. When she finished, he nodded slowly. "So you are a queen without a throne," he said, "and you have an army of assassins hunting you." "Yes, will not stop until I am dead. As long as I live, I am a threat to his power." "Then you need to disappear. Go somewhere he cannot find you." Lyra shook her head. "I cannot run forever, and even if I could, I cannot abandon my people. Those who remain loyal to me are being hunted and killed. I must find a way to stop. One injured queen against an entire empire. That is not a fight you can win." "Perhaps not, but I have to try. It is my duty." looked at her for a long time. He saw the determination in her eyes, the fire that still burned despite everything she had lost. She was broken but not defeated, dying but not surrendering. He had known soldiers like her. They were rare and precious. "My ship is outside," he said. "I can take you to a medical station where they can treat your injuries properly. After that," he paused, "after that, I can help you find safe passage to wherever you want to go. You would do this for me, a stranger, an alien. I told you I do not know why I am doing any of this, but I have come this far. I might as well see it through." Lyra reached out with one of her hands and touched his arm. Her skin was cool against his. "Thank you. I will never forget this kindness." He helped her stand, supporting her weight as they walked slowly toward the gap in the hull. Every step caused her pain, but she did not complain. She leaned against him and let him guide her forward. Outside, the moon was still and silent. The bodies of the Shadow Guard lay where they had fallen, did not look at them. Death was too familiar to him. He had no feelings left for those he killed. When they reached the silent wind, he helped Lyra inside and set her down on the medical bed in the back of the ship. The bed was old but functional. It would keep her stable during the journey. "Rest now," he told her. "We have a long flight ahead." She said as he turned to leave, "I have one more question." "What is it?" "The hunters, the Shadow Guard, they are the best warriors in my empire. They have killed thousands. How did you defeat them alone?" Smiled, but there was no joy in it. "Humans are strange creatures. We are weak compared to many species. We do not live long. We cannot breathe underwater or survive in the cold of space. But we have one gift that others do not." "What gift is that?" "We do not know when to quit. No matter how bad things get, no matter how impossible the odds, we keep fighting, we keep pushing. We refuse to accept defeat even when we should." He paused. "Some call it stubbornness, some call it madness. I call it being human." Lyra looked at him with new understanding. She had read about humans in the old texts. Her scholars had called them a young species, insignificant in the grand scale of the galaxy. Now she saw how wrong they had been. "Perhaps," she said softly, "that is exactly what my people need right now. Someone who refuses to quit." Said nothing. He returned to the cockpit and started the engines. The silent wind lifted off the moon and flew into the darkness of space. Behind them, the bodies of the Shadow Guard grew cold. Somewhere far away, General received news of their failure. And in the medical bay of a small human ship, a wounded queen fell asleep, dreaming of fire and hope and a soldier with kind eyes. The universe had brought them together for a reason. Neither of them knew what that reason was yet, but they would learn. In time, they would learn. 3 weeks had passed since found Lyra on that barren moon. Her wounds had healed, though scars remained on her silver skin. She was stronger now, able to walk and move without pain, but she was still far from the powerful queen she had once been. The royal power she had used during her escape had drained something deep inside her, something that would take many months to restore. They had been hiding on a small space station at the edge of the galaxy. It was a place for outcasts and criminals, people who asked no questions and wanted none asked of them. Knew the owner, an old friend from his military days. For a price, they were given a room and left alone. During those weeks, and Lyra had grown close. They talked for hours about their lives, their hopes, their regrets. She told him about her childhood in the royal palace, about the weight of responsibility that came with her crown. He told her about Earth, about the green hills and blue oceans of his home world. He even told her about IV, about the soldiers he had lost, about the guilt that still haunted him. "You blame yourself," Lyra said one evening as they sat together, watching ships pass by the station window. "But it was not your fault. War takes lives. You cannot save everyone." "I know that," replied, "but knowing and believing are different things." She placed one of her hands over his. "You saved me. Does that not count for something?" He looked at her then, really looked at her. In her purple eyes he saw understanding. She knew his pain because she carried her own. Two broken souls, lost in a cruel universe, finding comfort in each other. "Maybe it does," he said softly. But peace could not last. It never did. On the morning of the 22nd day, alarms began screaming throughout the station. Jumped from his bed and grabbed his weapons without thinking. His body moved on instinct, the soldier inside him awakening instantly. "What is happening?" Lyra asked, fear in her voice. Check the security screens near their door. His blood turned cold. Ships, military class, a dozen of them surrounding the station. "Found us." "Yes, we need to move, now." They ran through the corridors of the station. Around them, people were panicking, screaming, trying to find places to hide. The station's defenses were weak, meant to stop pirates, not a military fleet. They would not hold for long. Led Lyra toward the hangar where the Silent Wind was docked. If they could reach the ship, they might be able to slip through the blockade. It was a small chance, but it was all they had. They were halfway there when the first soldiers appeared. They wore black armor with red markings, the uniform of personal guard. Not shadow guard this time, but still dangerous. Very dangerous. "Stop," one of them commanded. "The Queen comes with us, the human dies." Raised his rifle. "Try me." The corridor exploded into chaos. Fired shot after shot, his aim perfect, his movements quick. But there were too many of them. For every soldier that fell, two more took his place. They pushed forward, step by step, their weapons filling the air with deadly energy. A blast caught in the shoulder. He stumbled but did not fall. Pain screamed through his body, but he ignored it. He had been hurt worse and kept fighting. Another blast hit his leg. He dropped to one knee but kept firing. Lyra cried, "You are hurt, we must retreat." "Go," he shouted back. "The ship is just ahead, I will hold them off." "No, I will not leave you." "You have to." He turned and looked at her, his face covered in sweat and blood. "Your people need you. The galaxy needs you. You are more important than me." "That is not true." "It is true, and you know it. Now go, please." Tears rolled down Lyra's silver cheeks. She wanted to stay. She wanted to fight beside him. But she knew he was right. If she died here, would win forever. Her people would never be free. "I will come back for you," she said. "I swear it." Then she ran. Watched her go, a small smile on his bloody lips. He turned back to face the approaching soldiers. There were at least 30 of them now, filling the corridor from wall to wall. "Okay," he said to himself. "Let us see what a human can do." He dropped his rifle. It was empty anyway. Instead, he pulled out his combat knife and a small pistol. Not much against an army, but enough to buy time. The soldiers attacked, moved into them like a storm. His knife found throats and joints, the weak points in their armor. His pistol fired until it ran dry, then he used it as a club. He fought with everything he had, every skill he had learned in his years of war. Blood covered the floor. Bodies piled up around him. The soldiers began to hesitate, their confidence shaken. They had heard stories about humans, about their strange refusal to surrender. Now they were seeing it with their own eyes. But even humans have limits. A blade found its way through his defense and buried itself in his side. He gasped and fell backward. Another blade cut across his chest. A boot kicked him to the ground. He tried to rise, but his body would not obey. More soldiers surrounded him, their weapons pointed at his head. He had killed 17 of them, he counted. Not bad for one human against an army. "Finish him," one of the soldiers ordered. Closed his eyes. He thought of Earth. He thought of his parents, who he had not seen in years. He thought of the soldiers who had died under his command. Soon he would join them. He thought of Lyra. "I am sorry," he whispered. "I could not protect you forever." But just as the soldiers prepared to fire, the station shook violently. Explosions echoed through the corridors. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency red. The soldiers looked around in confusion. "What is happening?" one of them demanded. Outside, through the station windows, ships were appearing from nowhere. Old ships, civilian ships, ships that did not match any military design. Hundreds of them, attacking the fleet with weapons that should not have been able to scratch military armor. But somehow they were winning. The ships were falling back, overwhelmed by sheer numbers. The blockade was breaking. The soldiers in the corridor received orders through their communicators. Their faces went pale beneath their helmets. "Retreat!" one of them shouted. "All units retreat! The fleet is being destroyed!" They ran, leaving lying in a pool of his own blood. He watched them go, confusion mixing with the pain. What was happening? Who was attacking? Footsteps approached, soft footsteps, familiar footsteps. Lyra appeared above him, her purple eyes filled with tears. Behind her stood a group of aliens did not recognize. They wore simple clothes and carried makeshift weapons, but their eyes burned with determination. Lyra breathed, "You came back." "I told you I would." She knelt beside him, pressing her hands against his wounds to slow the bleeding. "These are my people, the Loyalists. They heard rumors that their queen still lived and came to find me." All those ships. Ordinary people, farmers, traders, teachers, they came to fight for their queen. She smiled through her tears, and for the human who saved her. Laughed, then coughed blood. "I think I am dying." "No," Lyra said firmly. "You are not dying, not today, not ever." She placed both of her hands on his chest. Her eyes began to glow with faint blue light. Recognized that glow. It was the royal power, the gift she had used once before. "Lyra, no. You said it takes years to recover if you use it again." "I do not care. You gave your life to save mine. Now I give my power to save yours." The light grew brighter. Energy flowed from her body into his. Felt warmth spreading through him, pushing back the cold of death. His wounds began to close. His strength began to return. But he could see what it was costing her. Lyra's face grew pale. Her body trembled. She was giving him everything she had left. "Stop," he begged. "You will kill yourself." "Some things," she whispered, "are worth dying for." The light faded. Lyra collapsed beside him, unconscious but alive. Lay there, healed but horrified. She had saved him. This alien queen, this stranger from another world, had given up her greatest gift to keep him alive. He did not understand why. Or maybe he did, and he was just afraid to admit it. The war lasted 6 months. It was not a war of great armies and powerful weapons. It was a war of ordinary people standing up against tyranny. It was a war of farmers with old rifles and traders with civilian ships. It was a war that should have been impossible to win. But they won. General had made a mistake that all tyrants make. He had believed that fear was stronger than hope. He had believed that crushing the weak would make him powerful. He had believed that no one would dare to challenge him. He was wrong about all of it. When word spread that Queen Lyra still lived, something changed in the hearts of her people. The fire that had tried to extinguish began to burn again. One planet rose up, then another, then another. Ships that had hidden in the darkness came back into the light. Soldiers who had followed out of fear turned their weapons on him instead. And at the center of it all was a human. Had never asked to be a leader. He had spent years running from responsibility, hiding from the ghosts of his past. But Lyra had believed in him, and somehow that was enough. When the loyalist captains needed guidance, they came to him. When battles seemed lost, his voiced them to fight on. When hope faded, he reminded them why they were fighting. He taught them human tactics. He showed them how to fight against stronger enemies. He told them stories of human history, of small groups defeating empires, of ordinary people changing the world. "Humans are not the strongest species," he told them one night before a crucial battle. "We are not the or the fastest, but we have something that cannot be measured. We have heart. We have spirit. We have the stubborn belief that things can always be better, no matter how dark they seem. They listened, they learned, they fought. Fell on a cold morning in the capital city of Prime. His remaining soldiers surrendered when they saw the size of the army against them. The general himself tried to run, to escape to the outer systems where he might rebuild his power. But there was nowhere left to run. The galaxy had turned against him. Was the one who found him hiding in a storage room beneath the royal palace. The great general, the destroyer of worlds, cowering in the dark like a frightened child. It would have been easy to kill him. Part of wanted too. This monster had murdered millions. He deserved death. But Lyra had asked for mercy. She wanted to face justice, real justice, before her people. She wanted the galaxy to see that her rule would be different from his. So lowered his weapon and took prisoner instead. The trial lasted 3 days. Witnesses spoke of horrors that made even hardened soldiers weep, tried to defend himself, tried to claim that everything he did was for the good of the Empire. No one believed him. In the end, he was sentenced to spend the rest of his life on a prison planet, alone with his memories of all the pain he had caused. Some said it was not enough. Some said death would have been too kind. But Lyra believed that true justice was about more than punishment. It was about healing. It was about building something better from the ashes of the old. The restoration of the Empire took time. Many planets were still in ruins. Many people had lost everything. But slowly, piece by piece, things began to improve. Food shipments reached starving worlds. Medical teams treated the sick and injured. Schools reopened. Children began to laugh again. And through it all stayed by Lyra's side. Some of the nobles did not approve. A human standing at the right hand of their queen. It was unprecedented. It was improper. It went against thousands of years of tradition. Lyra did not care. "This man saved my life," she told them in a voice that allowed no argument. "He fought for our people when he had no reason to. He bled for us. He nearly died for us. If any of you have a problem with his presence, you may take it up with me directly." No one took her up on that offer. As the months passed, found himself changing. The guilt that had haunted him for years began to fade. The nightmares grew less frequent. He started to believe that maybe, just maybe, he deserved to be happy. One evening he stood on the balcony of the royal palace, watching the sun set over the rebuilt city. Lyra joined him, her silver skin glowing in the fading light. She looked healthy and strong again. Her power had slowly returned, though she had sworn never to use it carelessly again. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "Earth," he replied. "I have not been home in a long time. Do you want to go back?" He turned to look at her. In her purple eyes he saw fear. Fear that he would say yes. Fear that he would leave. It was the same fear he felt whenever he thought about losing her. "No," he said. "I do not want to go back. My home is here now." Lyra smiled, and it was like the sun rising after a long night. She took his hand in two of hers and held it tight. "The council has been asking me about the future," she said, "about alliances and treaties and the expansion of our trade routes." "That sounds boring." She laughed. "It is very boring, but necessary. And one of the things they keep asking about is humanity. Your species is small, but what you did here has not gone unnoticed. The other empires are curious about the humans who helped restore the throne." "What did you tell them?" "I told them that humanity is unlike any species we have ever encountered. You are fragile but brave. You are young but wise. You do not have the power to move mountains, but you have the will to try anyway." She paused. "I told them that any empire that makes an enemy of humanity is a fool, and any empire that makes a friend of humanity is lucky beyond measure." Felt warmth spread through his chest. He squeezed her hand. "There is talk of a formal alliance," Lyra continued, "between the Empire and Earth, a partnership that could change the galaxy forever. The Council wants me to lead the negotiations." "And what do you want?" She looked up at him, her eyes soft. "I want you beside me. Whatever comes next, I want to face it with you." In that moment, standing on the balcony as stars began to appear in the darkening sky, understood why fate had brought him to that barren moon all those months ago. It was not chance. It was not luck. It was something more, something that connected them across the vast emptiness of space. He leaned down and kissed her. It was their first kiss, gentle and warm and full of promise. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. "I will be beside you," he said, "always." Far below, the people of Prime continued to rebuild their lives. Children played in the streets. Merchants opened their shops. Musicians played songs of hope and renewal. They did not know that their queen was standing above them, holding the hand of a human who had changed everything. But they knew they were alive. They knew they were free. And they knew that the future, whatever it held, was bright with possibility. The galaxy had learned a lesson that day. It had learned that strength was not measured in weapons or wealth. It was measured in the willingness to stand up for what was right, even when the odds seemed impossible. It was measured in the courage to love and protect and sacrifice. And sometimes, just sometimes, that courage came from the most unexpected places. A wounded queen who refused to give up. A wandering soldier who found his purpose. Two souls from different worlds, bound together by fate and choice, and something neither of them had words for. This was their story, and it was only the beginning.